I'm so excited to share my in-depth interview with James. But first, a word from our sponsors. As featured on YouTube's Captain and Cat Captain's Corner, your child or student's heart will grow with the stories in Bagette's Balloon, a sweet adventure about kindness and the gift of giving. Perfect for ages 3 to 8, it gently introduces empathy, diversity, and real-life themes like aging, disability, allergies, and caring for our environment. Kids love spotting the color-changing balloon and joining the search for Bagette's lost cat. Comes with the magic of Smile stickers, free downloadable kindness crafts and activities that will always be free in Bagette's Kindness Creative Lab. These make learning kindness fun, doable, and easy to fit into everyday play just like any other favorite activity. Features hand-drawn illustrations created without AI. Every page is filled with warmth and originality. Join the kindness mission and see how far a single act of kindness can travel. Visit Bagette.com, and that's BAJETTE.com, to access the book, kindness shirts, gallery, reviews, and always free activities in the Kindness Creative Lab. If you have a kindness idea or story, write to giving@Bagette.com to win a premium edition of Bagette's Balloon. You can really tell that this book was made with a lot of love. Get Bagette's Balloon. Well, hello, James. I am so excited that we are getting to do this together.
I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yay! Let's go back to the beginning. What was it like for you growing up in Modesto, California?
It's interesting because I knew that I wanted to be an actor when I was 10 years old. And there was a really good community theater, Modesto Youth Theater, run by Paul Tischer. I think he still runs it. And he actually gave me a really good foundation of professionalism. But Modesto, when I was growing up, was a smaller place. It was an agricultural town. It was very conservative. And it wasn't really the place that was going to be a good place to be an artist. If you were on the football team, you were in. If you had a good car, you were in. If you were an actor, you were not in. I knew that this was not going to be the place where I ended up living the rest of my life. And I couldn't wait to get to a place that was a better fit for me. I will say, though, two good things. When my first wife and I divorced, she went back to that area. And so I rented a little farmhouse outside of Modesto to visit my son and went there every other weekend to visit him. And what I discovered with adult eyes was that Modesto was a really beautiful town.
When you came back to it in a whole different point in your life, you were able to see that?
Exactly. I was looking at it for what it wasn't, which was a artistic mecca, a theater mecca, and so I judged it on that level. And being able to see it for what it was later in life, I really recognized, wow, I actually did grow up in a nice, bucolic little town. It's not little anymore. It was smaller when I was growing up. And the other thing is that because it was an ill fit, it kind of led me into a rebellious mindset, which I think paid off really well for me later. I remember when Rocky Horror Picture Show was running, and it would run every Saturday night. And we would put on dresses and lipstick and high heels and go watch Rocky Horror. And walking to the theater, lots of honking and cursing at us and epithets thrown at us. And we loved it. We were like, F you, man, we'll go to Rocky Horror. And that, I think, led me into punk rock and a subversive mindset, which led me into producing subversive theater. And ultimately, by the time I met you, I was fairly well steeped in punk rock. A true punk might really learn all about me and say, you're not actually a true punk. But I had enough of that experience and I knew enough about that world, and I identified enough with that mindset that I think I could kind of start quickly with Spike. So it all turned out well, but Modesto is where George Lucas is from. So the movie American Graffiti is all about Modesto.
Yes.
And so there's something quite charming about it, but something that didn't give me everything I needed.
Your father was a United Methodist minister and your mother a social worker. Is that correct?
Yeah, my father, I think out of seminary, they stuck him up in the mountains. I think maybe he didn't get the best grades in seminary. I don't know. But he had a very small congregation in Greenville, California, at the head of the Feather River. And then later, when they moved down to the valley, he became a minister down in the Central Valley. And then quit that and became a parole officer in Marin County.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. The Civic Building in Marin, where he worked, was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Nice.
Yeah, and everything was a circle. And I remember he knew this, and he pointed out that there's no straight lines in this building. It's all curves and circles. Frank Lloyd Wright often based a home on a hexagon, or some kind of geometric shape he'd be working with. And it was a circle for this building. And yeah, my mom was a social worker. She worked with developmentally challenged tweens and teens, and then she moved on to working at an ICU at a hospital with families that were dealing with premature birth. And she was also an ardent feminist. So I grew up in a feminist household where the bumper stickers on our car with a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle, or the sign for woman, equal sign, and the sign for man. That sense of equality between the sexes. It's true there's equality between any two human beings, I think, but the equality between the sexes is something that was really ingrained in me. And remember when my mom said, look, to recognize sexism, just ask yourself if something's okay to do for a man, but it's not okay to do for a woman. That double standard is how you recognize sexism. And I think that applies to prejudice of all kinds. There's lots of little things that she helped me see clearly as I moved on into adulthood.
And what do you feel was expected of you by your family?
Not much. They were busy. Don't die. And, basically, get out of the house by the time you're 18 and take care of me in my old age. That was it. And do your chores. Other than that, it was kind of nice because I wouldn't say they were super supportive of me being an actor, but as long as I wasn't in jail, it was like, whatever you want me to do it, whatever. So I didn't get any negative, don't become an actor. As long as you're out of the house, we're fine.
Was there anyone else in your family who was creative?
No one else who pursued it. I would say that we were all creative, but in a more casual way. My father played guitar. He taught me how to play guitar. He's the one that started me playing guitar. My mother loved to sing when she did the dishes. My brother was more into science. And my sister was a bit of a cipher. She kept to herself growing up. I never really got to know her until we were adults. She ultimately became a chiropractor, actually. And so, no, I don't think that art and creativity was the centerpiece of my home life at all. I was kind of the weird one, yeah. And proudly so. I wanted to be weird. I grew my hair out to audition for Godspell in this really conservative town with this big mop of hair. I would go to secondhand stores and buy huge suits that were too big for me and then take them in because I had a sewing machine, and I would make zoot suits.
And you did it yourself? You knew how to do that? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Anything that was connected to producing theater. So making props, learning how to do makeup, learning how to light things, learning how to build costumes, anything like that. I knew very early that I was going to want to produce theater. So I was learning all of those tool sets. So I would make myself zoot suits, for anyone out there that doesn't know, was a rebellion against the rationing in the Second World War. They were rationing wool and linen. So the Eisenhower jacket was very popular because it didn't take a lot of material to make. The Eisenhower jacket is a jacket that just goes to the waist. And zoot suits were like, oh, really? Really? You want us to do that, huh? And they would make these suits where the waistline was up to here and the jacket went down to your knees. And so that was a rebellious kind of look. And so I wore zoot suits and Chinese exercise slippers. Go figure. I don't know why. I was like a billboard of I'm not going to be living here forever.
Right. And so your sister became a chiropractor. What does your brother do now?
Don't know. I don't know. He disappeared.
Oh.
He had mental problems and addiction problems. And I tried to help him. I spent quite a lot of money not realizing that you can't force someone.
If he's not there to do it.
Yeah, you can't force help on someone. I don't know.
I'm so sorry. How long has it been since you guys haven't known where he is?
During Buffy, I got him into rehab, and gave him an apartment and a therapist and a psychologist and a stipend, thinking he could get back on his feet, and then he disappeared. And so that would somewhere in the early aughties, I think.
Right.
Quite
Right.
a long time. Yeah.
As far as knowing that you wanted to be a performer, is it true that when you were performing Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh that you had that aha moment? Is that correct?
No, it took another 2 years. So, it wasn't 8 years old, it was 10 years old. Eeyore was my debut, and I was very serious about it. I really wanted to dig into the pathos of Eeyore.
Yes.
I'd really sink that in. I would give anything to see that. I wish I had a videotape of that. It would be hilarious.
Do you remember at all your take on Eeyore, what you did with it?
You know, I was watching How to Train Your Dragon, the movie, and Gerard Butler is playing the father in this movie. And it's a silly movie about training dragons, you know, a high concept sci-fi fantasy film. But he's playing a father who loves his son, but is very let down by him because he's not a dragon hunter. And he's just conflicted about that. And I think it's his best performance. Gerard Butler was in 300. He does a lot of action movies now. He's always been a good actor, but he really sank it. He really made it matter to him. And the style of the movie, he's heightened, and because it's based on a cartoon, so his performance is not realistic. It's heightened, but he's also sunk down so that it has weight, it has depth, and it has charm, and it has all the fireworks on top. I think it's his best performance. Last night, I was like, I would love to tell him that. So that's what I tried to do with Eeyore as an 8-year-old.
How did you know to do that at 8 years old? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just said, this is a depressed character. He is obviously in a clinical depression. He is not okay. You know? Whenever you talk to Eeyore, I'm fine. You know? And I was like, you could either play Eeyore as just like this self-pitying jerk, but that's not the way to go if you want the audience to be in your corner.
Right, to like you and wanna.
Yeah, so if something's wrong, you know? I don't know if I had the experience to, like, identify the thing that was wrong, but I really wanted to.
You must have, though, to some degree, to be able to even get there, to have some feeling of identifying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to be a human being, and childhood is not easy, so I'm sure I was dredging up something that I could get depressed about. I had awkward hair. I wasn't popular, so that probably helped.
And what movies or TV, or was there a particular show or movie that you saw as a kid where you went, "Oh, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in storytelling"?
Deer Hunter.
How old were you when you saw Deer Hunter?
When it first came out, so that would have been early teens. It was John Savage in the water with De Niro, and they're being forced to play Russian roulette, and John Savage was having a mental, emotional breakdown. By that time, I'd done a bunch of plays, and I knew I wanted to be an actor. I was very serious about it, and he was doing something that I had no idea how one gets there. He was using, I think, the method. To this day, I just think it's one of the most amazing scenes I've ever seen in my life. And of course, De Niro was amazing in the scene, but Savage is just, he's breaking down. He's just absolutely breaking down. And I had a picture on my wall of John Savage, you know, with the gun to his head. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then Marathon Man.
Was it Dustin Hoffman?
Both of them, because there was something about Olivier and the casual way that he was washing his hands, and he just kind of says into the mirror, Dustin is tied up behind him, and he wants to know if he can go get his Nazi gold.
Right.
And he thinks that Hoffman knows. Hoffman has no idea, but he's going to torture him to find out. And he just kind of washing his hands. He just goes, "Is it safe?" I didn't even do it as casually as Olivia did. "Is it safe? Is it safe?" And he's like, "What is what safe? Is it safe?" That was just a really good choice. And I remember really clocking that. But at the same time, realizing that Hoffman, his acting style was more effective. I've been told that Olivier was the best actor in the world and everything. And I'm watching that scene. I'm like, actually, this younger guy is better in this. I've come to realize now that Olivier really struggled with film. He had such a wonderful toolbox for theater. It was hard for him to put that in the closet and learn how to act for this new medium. He was less stagey in Marathon Man.
Yep. Marathon Man and The Entertainer, also less theatrical.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's an amazing actor.
In that, I think his character is supposed to be a working class guy, and he doesn't sound working class, but it is more subtle and more working with the camera than sometimes as well.
Yeah, but Hoffman was just because, like, apparently for that scene, Hoffman had stayed up all night. He's been kidnapped. He's stressed out. And Olivia's like, "Dear boy, why don't you try acting? It's much easier, you know." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you try what Hoffman's doing, Larry? It's working better, you know."
So your inspirations were definitely light comedy. I'm getting
Oh
that
yeah,
feeling. Yeah.
Apocalypse Now too. Oh my god, I love that. Oh my
Oh,
god.
yes. I mean, such powerful and really character-driven films you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, I came of age when Hollywood was doing a lot of serious, character-driven drama, French Connection, Serpico. These were the movies that were really the ones that were being talked about.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah. Those are scripts where actors can really sink their teeth into and just knock them out of the park. They're not high concept. You're not doing special effects. You're really talking with other people and you're playing characters that are in these dramatic situations. Taxi Driver. I was having these experiences in theater and getting all of this toolbox for theater and really realizing that that's where my heart lay, but also really clocking that there was a whole nother school of acting going on for camera that was really impressive.
And
Yeah.
what music inspired you?
When I was growing up, I remember I had 3 albums, one by Al Green, which I'm proud of to this day, and then I had a Partridge Family and an Osmond Brothers. Uh,
I had those. I remember those. No Bobby Sherman?
no, he was cheesy.
Oh my gosh. But
No,
the
I'm
Partridge
kidding.
Family
I'm
and
kidding. If you had the Osmond Brothers, then yeah, probably Bobby Sherman. I probably just couldn't afford it. But then when I was 12 or 13, my mom married a hippie from San Francisco, and he had the most amazing record collection. And he had a great turntable, huge speakers, and he had Edgar Winter, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash. He had everybody from the 70s, hundreds of records, and introduced me to it all.
Oh my gosh, it must have been like Nirvana. Not the band Nirvana, but like, oh.
Yeah, just Stevie Wonder. I mean, I can just go on and on and on because the music from the 70s we all know is just absolutely fabulous. And so I just got schooled. I remember when I was in high school, by the time I was like 17, 18, I wanted to find that music that Ken wouldn't understand. My music. And I hit him with Tom Petty's, like, I love it. Hit him with the Sex Pistols, awesome. Hit him with the Clash, great. I couldn't get there, man. Couldn't have my music. And I finally hit him with Bob Marley. And he said, "This is awesome, but all the songs sound the same." I was like, "Okay, close enough." That's my rebellion.
And so, from what you said, your parents must have divorced prior to that. How old were you when they divorced?
3.5 or 4 years old.
Oh, you
Pretty
were
early.
pretty young.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then did you stay in contact equally, or how did that work for you?
No, no, I saw my father for about 24 hours a month.
And then how old were you when Ken came into the picture?
12 or 13. Just perfect. Just perfect. He would make fun of the $6 million man.
Oh, it was just square for him, right?
Yeah, square, but he would also be like, he does not have a bionic back. He has got bionic legs, and if he lifts that van, his back is gonna shatter. And he would just, like, over and over point out all the cheese and all the things that don't make sense. I'm like, "And shut up. Let me enjoy this."
So, when you joined the theater group in high school, what was that like?
Fabulous. I remember my first year of high school was in Marin County because I went to spend a year with my father. And I went from a culture where if you were an actor, you were at the bottom of the totem pole. And if you were on the football team, you were at the top. And at Francis Drake High School in Marin County, no one took the football team seriously. They lost every game and they were proud of it. The whole high school didn't care at all. But if you were an actor or a singer or a musician of some kind, you were at the top.
Oh my gosh, so totally different culture.
Yeah, and they had a huge, wonderful theater, and I was in, man. As soon as people saw me act, because by the time I was 13, I'd already been doing it for a while, and I was pretty good. And so as soon as they saw me act, I started getting invited to all of the senior parties and stuff. It was incredible. So by the time I went back to Modesto, I had this attitude of I'm going to wear zoot suits and Chinese exercise slippers. I don't care if I'm not popular. You guys are not popular where I'm going to be going.
Right. There's a bigger world out there.
Yeah. We had a really good drama teacher, Bobby Roberts, in Modesto. When I went back there for my sophomore year, I landed and I was very lucky. She chose very good plays and she directed them very well and she casted them very well. I remember my first play in Modesto High School was Antigone.
Oh, heavy.
Yeah, I had a very small role, but both the woman playing Antigone and the man playing Creon were really, really good.
You mean the kids? You're saying woman
Yeah.
and man, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were
sorry.
kids, right?
Yeah. The teens, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But they were like 17.
Right.
They were seniors. We won all sorts of awards. I remember going around Northern California to these competitions or whatever and just sweeping up. It was such a good play. By the time I was a junior, I was kind of the new leading man in the high school. And so I got to play Henry David Thoreau in the night Thoreau spent in jail and other plays, which I don't remember right now. But I just remember the great thing about Bobby was that she knew the truth, which is that most of the power that a director has as far as quality is who you cast.
Right.
Once you've cast it, the best thing to do if you possibly can is just let that actor explore and do their thing. And you really can't make up for bad casting with just directing the heck out of each moment and everything. It doesn't work. And so she really cast well and then just let us go. She would often fall asleep during rehearsals. By the time we got like she's a teacher, she gets up at 5 a.m., so it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we finish the run through and we look at Bobby and she's like, But that actually
was a gift because she wasn't micromanaging you and she was actually letting you guys find things and explore and learn to trust your instincts and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very lucky.
What was the first play you saw before doing all of your own productions? Was there something that you saw on stage?
The first one that I remember was at Stanislaus State University, and it was Godspell.
Oh.
And I remember in Godspell, in the intermission, the last song is, let's have some wine. And then at the intermission, they serve wine or grape juice to the audience. And I just remember something clicking in my mind where they just erased the fourth wall and took cups during intermission and served the people and gave them their juice or their wine or whatever it was. And that just blew me away. This sense of how powerful it is in stage to admit that we're all in the same room together. And here we are, to the point where in my theater career, when I would do a soliloquy, which is different than a monologue is where the fourth wall holds and the character doesn't admit that the audience is there. A soliloquy is where the character is aware of the audience. And I was always told, talk above the heads of the audience so you don't make them uncomfortable. And I was like, no. I saw a Godspell. So I'm going to look into the eyes of one person at a time. Hey, to be or not to be? That's the question. One person, and watch him go, he's talking to me. And then go to the next person and say the next line to that specific person and talk to the people directly as if you were actually talking to human beings.
Yes.
And wow, it's just a whole new level of connection. If you're going to have a difference between a monologue and a soliloquy, jump into the difference.
Live theater is about connecting and communication. And that is direct communication. You are looking at the audience. I did a production of Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, and we ended up doing it here in LA and running for 6 months when it was supposed to be 6 weeks because we got extended. But there was one night we're in this bar, and there's supposed to be this one chair that Danny keeps looking at and almost wanting to pick a fight with this guy who's literally out, asleep, drunk. And my husband, Dev, put Gary Oldman, came to the theater to see the show and put him in that seat. And it was funny because we have this whole thing where we're talking to that audience member. And I could feel my co-star start to do that bit of the play when we first talked to him. And I saw him think, oh my God. And he paused. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe Dev did that.
Yeah, right.
He's having to address and pick a fight with Gary Oldman, but it was fantastic.
Good for you, Dev. Oh, mix it up.
Exactly. Live theater, right?
Yeah, there's something to be said about those little practical jokes. During a long run of a play, I used to think this was so unprofessional, but there'd be an agreement that you had to work a prop into your scene. A little bunny or a bottle or whatever the thing was. It wasn't in the play, but now it is. And you have to make sure that it gets into your scene, but you can't get caught. Or you have to, a phrase or a word you have to put into your dialogue.
Right.
And the whole thing is that it is seamless. The audience doesn't understand what's going on, but we're playing this little game because, and I realized this later, when you're doing 9 to 11 shows a week, it can get repetitive and you can kind of go to sleep and just be doing it by the numbers. But if you give yourself this extra added little thing, it can wake you up and make it magical again.
What is the weirdest prop you ever worked into a scene?
I think it was a rubber lizard.
How did you make that work?
I think that I was still judgmental about this. So I think I just like took it out of my pocket and set it on the counter. I'm like, there, I did it. There's a play here to do, because I was very serious about things. And this is before I realized that it was something that might be actually useful.
And then you went to Juilliard for 2 years.
Yeah. I went there at a time when it was at a low point, frankly. No one thinks that Juilliard in the early 80s was a good place to send somebody to learn how to act. It was really bad. There were people in charge of it who were fairly abusive to the students.
That's what I was going to say. Was it bad because they didn't teach well, or was it bad because they were abusive and suppressive? And
yeah, I mean, it was bad on a lot of levels. They kicked me out. They call half the class after the second year. And I remember being so sad that they cut me. But then I was invited back for the 50-year anniversary of Juilliard. And so I went back there and I met a lot of my classmates. The ones who didn't get kicked out were even more wounded and angry than I was. I had really kind of processed it and was getting over it and getting free of all of that weight. But they had twice as much weight and they still weren't over it. You could tell it was still torturing them.
that's terrible.
Oh, terrible. It's not like that anymore.
No.
In interviews, I thought it was my mission to warn people about Juilliard. And I would, in like national interviews, I would say the best thing for American theater is to bulldoze that building. The last thing you want to do is send a young mind into that school. And apparently they heard about that. They were like, they almost didn't invite me to the 50-year because like, no, James hates Juilliard. But after going back there and attending a few classes, and actually I did a pilot with a recent graduate, this young woman who said that it was a very good program now. She had got a lot out of it and it was nothing like I remember. So,
Well, that's great because that sounds like a horrendous experience.
yeah, it was bad. Yeah.
But you also didn't let it stymie you or stop you from doing what you wanted to do.
No, man, like they hated me because I was used to doing good plays. I'd come from a 2-year program in Santa Maria at the Pacific Conservatory, and I was used to working with some of the best actors on the West Coast. And then suddenly I'm at Juilliard, and we're doing Troilus and Cressida. And Marion Seldes, she's gone now, but she was one of the finest Broadway actresses, one of the best actors in America. And she, as good as she was as a actor, she was that bad as a director. And so she was directing this, and she was giving us no direction. She just kept saying, "Keep going, my birds. It's wonderful. It's wonderful." And we're 3 days away and everyone's still kind of improvising. There's no structure. And I'm like, someone's got to say something about this. And so I stood up and said, guys, we're going to have human beings spending 3 hours of their life with us. We're going to waste their time. They're never going to forgive us. We have got to tell this story. This sucks, man. And that's not what I should have said. I got labeled as this rebellious, arrogant young man. I remember by the time they kicked me out, they said, "You are not an actor. You should quit before you get bitter, because you have no future in acting of any kind."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I kind of went, you know what? I agree with you. I'm not doing well here. That is true. But I had been acting for a long time. I've already been in like 45 plays
Right.
by the time I've met you people. And it was going really well out there before I came here. I'm going to go back to doing what I did before.
That's so good that you actually had that experience prior to know that, because for people that didn't, they might have just gotten crushed. And I don't think that anyone has the right to tell anyone else, teacher, student, that they shouldn't pursue their dream, ever.
There was this one dude in my class at Juilliard who was so tense that his body would curl up as he was acting.
Oh,
I mean, it was really pronounced. I remember thinking, he may not be someone that wants to be stared at, like that may be the case of.
but you could also take him through some deep relaxation exercises and things and see if there is a way to open him up and get him to feel comfortable. Certainly that environment is only going to shut him down more and more.
Yeah. And point being, I later did a radio play with him at Theater Works in Los Angeles, and we were doing Frost Nixon, and he was playing Nixon's chief of staff,
Right?
and he was freaking phenomenal.
Amazing.
Voice of God. Every time he opened his mouth, it's like, oh God, listen to that guy. That's a serious dude. Oh, it's like Moses. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Never, ever tell someone that they should not be creating something. My God.
And then what prompted you to move to Chicago?
Yeah, so okay, I got kicked out of Juilliard. I'm kind of trying to break into theater in Manhattan, running up against the fact that at that time, at the very late 80s, the real estate prices had gone up so high during that period that all of the entry-level theater was gone. Ensemble Studio Theater was still there on the West Side, but there was almost nobody in the 100 to 200 seat theater category where you'd usually get your first work. There was only one rehearsal space. The Minskoff was still doing it, but there was no other rehearsal spaces in Manhattan. There were no costume shops were left. No prop shops were left. It was barren. And I was trying to break into that, and it wasn't working. My girlfriend at that time got out of college herself. And after about a year and a half of waiting tables and bartending for both of us, she's like, James, it ain't happening here. And I'm reading that it's happening in Chicago. Steppenwolf is just on fire, and a lot of scripts that are getting national attention. The first production I'm reading was in Chicago. It's all coming from Chicago right now. That's where the fountain is right now. I'm going to Chicago. If you want to come with me, cool. If you don't, I'm gone. Bye-bye.
Wow.
So I followed the girl. And
her logic was good too.
it was sound. Yeah. Got to Chicago, auditioned for a play at the Center Theater, little tiny storefront theater, but we were doing Lysistrata 2411 AD. So it was Lysistrata, a Greek play about the Trojan War and women getting sick of their men always being at war and saying, well, I'm not going to sleep with you until you stop being at war. And the men being like, fine. And then figuring out very quickly that that's not going to work for anybody. It's not, we can't, and the war stops pretty quickly. And it's a comedy. It was placed in the future. So the costume design was really, fabulous and everything. But they did it the way it was designed to be done, which is every Greek comedy is designed for the actors, the male characters, to wear a phallus, which is a fake erect penis strapped where it's going to look realistic on your body.
Wow.
That's how the Greeks did it. And it's all written with the assumption that you will be wearing that thing. All the jokes are predicated on that visual image. We don't do that because we don't have the guts to do it these days. And they're still funny when you don't have the phallus, but my God, we wore the phallus. And it was like shooting fish in a barrel. It was like every line, house laughs, full house, everything, because they had the courage to do that. And I found Chicago theater to be bold and offensive and in your face and dangerous and brave, just across the board. Like, that's who we are. This is Chicago theater, pal. Like, what is it, Sean Connery? That's the Chicago way. It was kind of like that. I just spent 6 years. I was in one play, if not two. Sometimes I was in two plays and producing my own play. I was just seeped in this kind of ethos of ballsy, brave theater.
You were in The Tempest at the Goodman Theater, and you were naked in that play.
Yeah. So, okay. The Goodman Theater was the biggest, most prestigious theater in Chicago, but it was also the most kind of safe theater in Chicago. They had a very older subscription base.
You mean the audience that goes, what did he say? While you're
Exactly. Yeah. So Bob was this electrifying, fiery, subversive theater director who had a theater up in the northern part of Chicago. I wish I could remember the name of the theater. Anyway, they put him in as the artistic director, which was really a surprising move. And Bob decided that he wanted to get all of the older people to cancel their subscriptions so that room could be made for a younger audience. And so he put blatant, unnecessary nudity into every play in his first season as a director.
Every single one?
Every single play just had full frontal nudity in it. And it worked. A lot of people were like, this is not, I'm not going to do this. But for The Tempest, I was the full frontal. That was my professional debut. The Tempest is a Shakespeare play about a wizard who's on the run. There's an assassination attempt on his life, and he runs away to an island and takes his daughter so they don't get killed. And the island is full of sprites and magical creatures, and everything's great until she comes of age. And he realizes that he's done her wrong, and he has to find a young man for her to learn life with. And using his magical powers, he finds the perfect man for his daughter, this prince who happens to be sailing by, and he makes a magical storm which wrecks the ship, and so that this young man can crash on the shores and get to know his daughter. So being that he's the perfect man, Bob thought it would be cute to put me out in a metal hoop so that I would look like the Da Vinci perfect man sketch, spread eagle, right? And at first rehearsal, he's like, yeah, we're going to have you naked. I'm like, okay.
You mean emotionally naked? Nope.
Yeah, right. Nope, we're going to be naked. You can keep your underwear on for rehearsals, but I do want you in underwear for today and every day.
Oh my gosh. Right from rehearsal 1, you're in your underwear.
Well, this is Chicago. This is Bob Falls. This is just like, dude, be brave. Go, no pity. Like, Chicago's awesome. It's just like, I just love it.
And none of the other cast was naked in the particular show. It was just you.
Yeah. But I mean, like, no one's judging. It was okay. But I was freaking out, Bob was like, don't worry. It's going to be lit very tastefully,
Mm-hmm.
When it gets in front of an audience. So it's going to be okay. But the problem was that the lighting director broke his ankle in Denver the weekend before we went into technical rehearsals. And his assistant lit it for previews in the first week of the run. It was lit like a Vegas show. It was just
oh my God.
bright light, just huge amount of bright light, just front bright light. I remember the sprites who wheeled me out. They would show me Playboy magazine and Penthouse magazine because I was like strapped in the thing. I couldn't get out.
Oh, trying to get you aroused to.
Yeah, they were messing with me. Yeah, right before they.
That's not going to work when you've got a theater full of people. I don't think.
No. That was the thing. Is like, yeah, do your worst, but that's not going to happen right now. Exactly. Yeah, not going to happen right now.
How many shows a week of that did you do? 8?
Yeah, 8.
8. It's usually 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was the run?
6 weeks.
So by the end of the first week or 2, were you just completely old hat? It's fine.
Well, the interesting thing is that I would get rolled out and there'd be a gasp. What's that? And a murmur. And then click, 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 as all the opera glasses got clicked out and people took out their little handheld binoculars basically and tried to get a better look. So they were offended, but very interested. So there was always, a moment like, this is Bob doing his thing.
Here it goes. I'm going to hear the click, click, click next. People are going to be zooming in and
the murmur and everything. So no, it never got normal, but it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. They were paying me.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So then you formed your own theater company.
Yeah. The same woman that moved me from New York to Chicago and became my first wife and is the mother of my son. Before we produced The Human Being, we produced theater. And we were doing Lovers by Brian Friel. It's an Irish play, and it's a very wonderful, lyrical first act of these 2 young people in a boat. And the second act is that you found out these people have drowned. It was not being directed well, or not to our liking, I guess. And so we decided that we were going to rehearse ourselves.
You've learned since Juilliard to not say, this sucks.
Well, with Juilliard, I'll say it. But this was a good man, and he actually directed me in another play that was very well directed. And the first play that I directed, I was a terrible director. I mean, that happens. At any rate, we decided that we were going to rehearse separately in our own apartment, and we were going to make choices, and we were going to direct ourselves, and not do what's being suggested by the director at all, and be kind of in open rebellion, polite but open rebellion. And they didn't fire us, and we got amazing reviews. Like, it was a hit. And I remember I told her, look, man, we could mess it up this well. Apparently we can do this. We should produce. And we started producing.
And was it called the Genesis Theater?
Yeah. We had that name until I noticed it on a vacuum cleaner. And then we changed the name after that. But the first iteration was the Genesis Theater. And we only did 2 plays in Chicago. The first was right across the street from Steppenwolf. Obviously an awesome location, but it was in the middle of summer and we got it at an affordable price. And I did not understand why we got it at that price until we realized it was like 115 degrees in there in the summer.
Oh my gosh.
That's where you should have done the naked play.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Yeah, gets everyone take your clothes off. And so I was acting in another play across town, and we bought an air conditioning unit. We were so poor. We went without meat for 3 months so we could afford this air conditioning unit because we were trying to be responsible, not understanding that a window unit is not going to cool a whole theater. It's going to do nothing.
Oh, no.
Did our best. And I remember came home from the play that I was doing. One of the actresses lost so much salt by sweating one night that she cramped up and crabbed up and fell down on stage. They had to call an ambulance. Interestingly, people from Steppenwolf were in the audience and they helped get her medical attention, which started us being kind of connected with Steppenwolf. The play was actually, it got horrible reviews and I directed it poorly, but it actually wasn't so bad. It wasn't fairly well received, actually. Our second play was much better received. It was really a kind of a hit and got a lot of attention, at which point we started to ask ourselves, do we want to sink roots in Chicago? Or do we want to go through these winters, basically, in these summers? Because in the winter, it's like 40 below, and with a wind chill factor. In the summer, it's 100 degrees, 100% humidity. And do we want to sink roots to here, or do we want to look elsewhere?
And you guys went to Seattle and you started the new Mercury Theater there as well. Was that an homage to Orson Welles, the title?
Yeah. Again, Orson Welles with the Mercury Theater, who did War of the Worlds, and dared to scare the hell out of the audience, just full earth. I mean, they told the audience, for people who don't know, War of the Worlds, it's about an alien invasion, and this was a radio play.
And it was broadcast as if it was in real time happening.
Yes, and it was so well acted and so well produced. It was very believable. They did say in the beginning, this is a radio play, it's not real. But for anybody that missed that, if they tuned in just after that or anytime during the performance, it would have sounded exactly real. And it caused quite a sensation. I always wish that I could have been alive during that and I could have been fooled. How intense would that have been to think there's an invasion? So when my son was, I guess he was about 10 or 12 years old, I had gotten the CD of that radio play. And I told him, son, I want to play something for you. This amazing thing happened back in the 30s where the Earth
And
got
you
invaded.
set it up like it really happened.
Yeah, got invaded. It's okay now. It's safe today. But back in the 30s, we really thought we might lose this planet. You want to hear the news broadcasts of that time?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to listen to it. So he listened to it. He was just like, oh, he had this intense experience. And then right after it, I was like, by the way, I just did something. I lied to you. But it was so you could have this experience. I didn't want to hold the lie longer than absolutely necessary. But this was actually just a play.
Otherwise, Sullivan might be traumatized by alien invasion.
Yeah, but I always wanted that. And I thought I could give it to him in some way. Yeah.
Did you have the thing that we used to have with Equity Waiver Theater, where if there were more people in the audience than the production of actors, then you would do the play? But let's say there were 2 people, but it's a 20-person cast, that sometimes the show would get called?
Yeah, that was the rule both in Chicago and Seattle, but it was not the rule with us. If there was one person, we go. We're here anyway. We're willing to pay for the rights. Let's go. Like, what else are you going to do? You know, you're going to watch Friends. What I found is that some of the best performances were for 4 people.
Except I have one experience where I was doing a production of The Pushcart Peddlers, and we had one person in the audience, and that person was Carl Reiner, the comedy legend, and it's a comedy. And we couldn't believe it. We're like, of course we're going to do the show, but you don't want to play a comedy without a house because the laughs are contagious, like you were talking about when there's the energy of a full theater. So we did, but it was pretty crazy because you would look out and you could see he was bald, so you would see his head shining as we were doing this. And I kept remembering that when we go backstage, David, my co-star in the play, one of them who I got into the actor studio with, he and another actor named Pat Asante would do the first part of the play, the whole first act, and then I would come in afterwards. And that night he came back and he's like, Landau, we need you. We're dying out there. We're dying. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're performing this to Carl Reiner, a solo show for Carl.
I know. And of all the people to do a command performance to, Carl Reiner would be the worst one, the most important person that
Right.
you'd know if you're funny or not. Oh, my
Right.
God.
But it still ended up going well because we just pulled out all of the stops.
Yeah. Just
And,
good for you.
but he also, Carl is like many comic geniuses where when something's funny, they generally go like, oh, that's funny. They're not necessarily uproarious laughers. So, it wasn't the most painless experience. I'll put it that way.
Proper respect. I always tell my company, we're going to find out who's got it and who doesn't. We're going to find out who's doing it for the love of doing it and who's doing it for the approbations of other people.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for yourself, this is a perfect opportunity to be yourself and for each other.
And for that 1 to 4 people to have that transformative theater experience, to take the journey of the play,
Yeah, they didn't go to a movie or to dinner with their...
They came to the theater.
Yes, they trusted you that you were going to do something interesting tonight. That's why they're here. Do it.
Can you talk about your first TV acting job on Northern Exposure? You played 2 different parts, right? A bellboy and a church minister.
Exactly correct, yeah. In fact, I just saw the lead.
Rob?
Rob, yeah. So I saw Rob on a plane. As we were exiting the plane, I was just like, hey, by the way. And I was able to tell him that I'm so lucky that the first show that I was on, that my scenes were with him.
Oh.
Because he's a very fine actor.
Yes.
And I was just doing what he was doing. Had he been a big cheesy actor, I would have followed that down the wrong path.
My goodness.
Yeah, he's so grounded and so good. I just naturally followed what he was doing, The first one was the bellhop, and it was a scene where his character just got broken up with or something. He's very lonely, and he's trying to connect with another human being, and he's trying to start a conversation with the bellhop, and the bellhop is just not giving him the time of day. So all my lines were like, yes, sir. Well, nope. Have a good day. That was it. But it's a very funny scene on the page. And I remember just having an out-of-body experience when they said action the first time, and I knew that the lens over on the other side of the room represented millions of eyeballs. I had monosyllabic lines, or like 3-syllable lines. And if I'd had more to do than that, I don't know if I would have gotten through it.
So it was a great way to get your feet wet.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And I had directed enough that I made good choices. So it's a funny scene. I watched it and I was like, I did it. That's what that wanted to be. And so that when a larger role came up the next season, I was what they call a local hire. I lived in Seattle. And for the smaller roles, sometimes they will use local hires. They know that they may not be as experienced in film, but they save money by not having to fly them out and house them. So that's how I got into the small role. But I guess they liked what I did in that enough because they hired me for a much larger role a year later.
Yay!
Yeah, as the minister whose father was the most amazing minister in the world and had died, and his son is trying to fill his shoes, but his son is so shy he can't do it.
Oh.
It's just like, don't tell me your problems. Leave me alone. I can't do it. So a very good role. And I think I had one scene with a bunch of people who were also very good actors, and then one really elongated scene with Rob.
And did you channel any of your father for the minister, for any of the aspects of that?
No. My father was perfect to imagine as being the father of my character, the guy who was born to be a minister. In Buffy, we got to meet William, who was Spike before he was a vampire, before you got your teeth into me.
Yeah, literally.
Literally. And
To be continued. I'm excited to tell you about our Re-Vamped with Juliet Landau podcast sponsored Halloween
online event with me.
and me.
Me and Drew, we're moving in.
Look at all the people. All these nice people. Yes, Drew, it's all the folks we're hanging out with on Halloween. We will be watching 2 classic Buffy episodes, School Hard and Halloween,
There will be interviews with me
and me,
and Todd McIntosh,
as well as an interview with Jerry Baker,
makeup and hair department heads in honor of dressing up.
and an online cosplay contest judged by myself, Saya Rebecca.
And me.
The link for tickets is julietlandau.dreamhosters.com. You can come for 1 day or get the 2-day combo. I hope to see you there.
Let's get ready to Buffy!
If you want to be considered as a contender for this season's trivia battle, please email revampedpod@gmail.com. Yes, be sure to include your name, where you weigh in with your number of watch-throughs, where you're located, something interesting about you, or something you think would be good to share.
And your social media handles.
Yes, woohoo! Woohoo! Boop boop be drove. Revamptees, please correspond with me on our Patreon page, Revamped with Juliet Landau, on Twitter, @Juliet Landau, on Instagram, @Juliet_Landau, and on the Fans of Juliet Landau Facebook group, or Juliet Landau official Facebook page. Patreon peeps to be read in the credits: Dave Hall, Fonnie June Kendall, Daniel Harbour, Louise Brennan, Brandon Key, Cameron Burton, Donnie Ruskin, Madeline Pruitt, Marion Stevenson, Antonio H. Gutierrez, and Bobby Pelham. It makes all the difference because we cannot keep making the show without you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Until we meet again.
See you next time when we do it again. Do it again. Until then, rewatch, revamp, reinvent, and be remarkable you.